Okay, here we go, let's continue. Both Macbeth and Washizu, who are controlled by their overpowering desire for supremacy and the throne, stated one of the most prominent examples of power and greed. Okay, both Macbeth and Washizu, who are controlled by their overpowering desire for supremacy and the throne, are prominent examples of power and greed. So you need to change that. Macbeth is characterized as a virtuous man, possessing great loyalty to his kinsman and king. However, Macbeth cannot neglect his excessive desire for power, triggered by his ambition. Cannot neglect. Yeah, that's probably not the best phrase. Maybe is unable to resist might be better. His excessive desire for power, triggered by his ambition. As he states, I have no spur to prick the size of my intent, only vaulting ambition. Macbeth acknowledges that his only justification for committing his treasonous deed is his ambition-driven lust for power, to which he eventually capitulates, and which leads to his deterioration. That's a very good sentence, but I'm not a fan of this last word, which leads to his... When you say deterioration, it's more like the deterioration of his something, deterioration, which leads to the deterioration of his power, the deterioration of his moral fiber, the deterioration of his moral convictions, or of something is better. Consequently, Macbeth lets his reckless lust for the throne corrupt his conscience, overturn his inner conflict, and eventually drive him to Duncan's murder, because you're talking about his reckless lust. So his reckless lust does these things. Macbeth lets his reckless lust do these things: corrupt his conscience, overturn his inner conflict, and drive him to Duncan's murder. Yep. Towards the end of the play, Macbeth's greed eventually leads... Okay, just keep in mind what I said before. Leads to his degeneration from a thoughtful poet-warrior into a merciless, power-hungry tyrant. Okay. Who can only continue with gratuitous violence to keep himself on the throne. By relocating Macbeth into feudal Japan, Kurosawa replaces the play's medieval Scottish setting with incidents from the Japan Civil War period. Incidents? I think just with the Japanese Civil War period. However, the universal theme of power and greed is depicted the same way in Throne of Blood. If you use the, it should be in the film Throne of Blood, or just in Throne of Blood. In the beginning, if you say at, you could say at the start of the play. I think you mean Washizu. At the start of the film, Washizu is reluctant to murder Suzuki, believing that the murder of his lord would involve breaking samurai code and bring shame and dishonor to his family and clan. On the other hand, the overpowering nature of his thirst for supremacy consumes his samurai spirit and lures him into the... This is one word, and it's not hearty, it's foolhardy plan. Lures him into the foolhardy plan of his own demise. It's a bit awkward because it's not the plan of his demise. Lures him into a foolhardy plan leading to his own demise. I think otherwise it's a bit confusing. Washizu self-processes ambition. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Spurs him to take an active role in achieving the fortune predicted for him by the forest spirit. Thus the theme of power and greed is clearly evident, maybe, in both Macbeth and Washizu, who are blinded by their overpowering desire for supremacy and are ultimately submerged into utter darkness. Utter, maybe moral darkness. Okay, as a paragraph, it's not bad. It's quite good, actually. I think, like before, I would encourage you to quote the quote or refer to the evidence. And so when you say, he states, I have no spur to prick the size of my intent, only vaulting ambition, I think, refer to some of those words. So here you might say, Macbeth acknowledges that his only justification for committing his treasonous deed is his, quote, vaulting ambition or lust for power, to which he eventually capitulates. And so it's always better if you can refer to your evidence. Now down in the film, I'm looking for what is your evidence? What words are you using, or what specific reference to a scene in the film do you use as your evidence? I think you refer to the plot, certainly. You say he's reluctant to murder Suzuki. How do you know that? How can you prove that? You just make a statement without actually providing good evidence. And so remember, if you're going to say something about the film, you need to have credible evidence. For example, in the scene where Asaji is suggesting that Washizu murder Suzuki, his words or his expression or his the squinting of his eyes or the looking back and forth, like you have to actually refer to something in the film, something he said or something he does that helps us to understand, helps to prove your point. Okay. Let's see this one. Another aspect of both Macbeth and Throne of Blood that contributes to the theme of power and greed. I wouldn't say contributes. I would say that is further evidence of, or another way, not contributes, that's a bit weak, can be found in exploring the destructive aspect of power represented by guilt, which both Macbeth and Washizu experience. Okay. In the play, Macbeth's noble character and his possession of great loyalty to his kinsman. His possession of great loyalty. Just his great loyalty to his kinsman and king turns out to the obstacles preventing him. Turns out to be obstacles preventing him from justifying Duncan's murder. In Act 2, Scene 2, after his treasonous and evil deed is carried out, Macbeth is instantly filled with feelings of guilt and regret, as he states, "Will all Neptune's oceans wash this blood clean from my hand?" Okay, similar to what I said before about the metaphor of Duncan's blood, clearly demonstrates the sickly and horrible feelings of remorse that have immediately entered his mind. Consequently, he cannot withstand the distress and misery that his treason has brought on his poisoned conscience, and he eventually believes that even with Neptune's ocean, even the waters of Neptune's ocean, remember, use Neptune's ocean if you've explained the significance of it. His hand will forever be stained with blood, signifying his insurmountable guilt for acting upon his desire for power. Okay. Similarly, in Throne of Blood, the haunting, irremovable blood stain on the floors. Irremovable. That's not a great word. The haunting. Another word there. Blood stain on the floors of the room. Blood stains on the floor. The room only has one floor. Floor of the room where Washizu, make sure you spell it correctly, and Asaji sleep before their assassination is carried out, belong because stains belong to a traitor who was executed in the room. Was he executed or did he commit suicide? Just double check. Consequently, the bloodstain acts as a foreboding omen. I don't see how consequently is justified here. You haven't really given me an argument and can then say consequently because of this. I think you would just need to say the bloodstains act as a foreboding omen for their bloody future and the consequence of dishonor. After Washizu has assassinated the king, he returns with a bloody spear, sits paralyzed and unable to move as if in catatonic shock. His speechlessness and his inaction clearly explain how chaotic and conflicting his mind is under the oppression of the guilt he feels for being a traitor and breaking the samurai spirit. Yeah, have a look at how I suggested rewriting this sentence. It's a bit long. You keep maybe adding clauses to it, which makes it a little bit difficult to follow. By showcasing the destructive psychological impact that Macbeth and Washizu's murders have on them, the impact that it has on them for acting upon their desire to gain authority, the universal theme of power is portrayed in both texts. Okay. Universal theme of power. Okay, here you said power and greed. Are you talking about power and greed, or are you just talking about power? Just make sure that your focus is very clear. And your last one. Despite both texts sharing similarities in illustrating the destruction of power and greed on the male protagonists, the portrayal of the way Lady Macbeth and Lady Asaji act upon their desire to dominate and gain authority starts to diverge. Diverges from blah blah blah. Okay. Lady Macbeth, who is overly ambitious, is able to act upon her desire for power without considering the moral implications of her wrongdoings, as she asked the spirit to unsex her and fill her from the crown to the toe, top full of direct and cruelty. Make sure you've just double check that you've quoted it correctly and have the reference. Lady Macbeth essentially believes that her womanly apparatuses, no, apparatus is for a machine. Lady Macbeth believes that her womanly characteristics, maybe, or her feminine characteristics are are obstacles preventing her from pursuing her desire for power. Therefore, she needs Macbeth to carry out her desire and eventually becomes the evil provoker urging Macbeth to commit Duncan's assassination. Okay, you say that she believes that her feminine characteristics are obstacles. Therefore, I think here you need to not say therefore she needs Macbeth, but therefore she wants to change, or therefore she is willing to give up her femininity and be manly or be masculine enough to do something. So I think you don't really it's not therefore she asks Macbeth to do it, because she's asked the spirits to make her a man. So I think your logic is a little bit confusing there. She attempts to goad Macbeth into the act of regicide by mocking his masculinity and taunting him with his indecision by telling Macbeth he is a coward. Okay. Lady Macbeth successfully manipulates Macbeth's mind. So if you, I wonder if you should use a longer quote there, and then refer to the quote with this sentence, because you're quoting something that you haven't actually included up here. Either you need to put a reference or make it a longer quote. Otherwise, it's not clear that it's where the quote is from. Lady Macbeth successfully manipulates Macbeth's mind, making him believe that his masculinity is being destroyed by his indecisiveness and cowardice, provoking him to commit the regicide. Okay. In Throne of Blood, unlike Lady Macbeth, Lady Assaji cannot resort to words, since no theatre has little dialogue, with the focus being predominantly on actions to reflect her inner desire for power. If you say no theatre, you need to explain it a little bit more. You need to explain that the film is inspired by no theatre, or draws on no theatre for its style, its method, I guess. So a little bit more explanation is needed. Lady Macbeth challenges Macbeth's masculinity, while Assaji takes the initiative to fulfill the prophecy by manipulating Washizu through hinting to him that the seeking of the crown is a conduct that should not arouse any guilt or pain, rather being an action motivated by self-preservation. Lady Assaji also uses her pregnancy to confirm the necessity of killing Mickey and his son to ensure the line of succession to their issue. No, that's not the right expression. Consequently, Lady Assaji, taking into account that children are expendable, manipulates Washizu for her desire for power. Taking into the account that children are expendable. Taking into account... I don't know how you can say suddenly that she thinks children are expendable because she kills Mickey and his son. Is that right? Does she kill his son as well? I honestly can't remember. I thought the son got away, like in Macbeth. So I'm not sure of what you're saying here about children being expendable. Manipulates Washizu for her desire. Manipulates Washizu in her desire for power and dominance over their relationship. You say a lot of things here about children being expendable, that she desires power, and that she's wanting dominance in their relationship. However, you have to prove it. You need evidence from the film. So you need to refer to some very clear thing that happened, or an expression that she had, or clothing that she wore, or an object that she used, or the way the director used lighting, or you need to actually refer to the film or the words that she uses to prove what you're saying. Otherwise, my comment here would be, where is your evidence? And it wouldn't be as good of a paragraph as it could be. So I think you've got the evidence side pretty good in the Macbeth, but not so good in the film. Despite the fact that Lady Macbeth and Assaji act differently to gain authority, the theme of power and greed is clearly exemplified in both characters. That's okay.